Meanwhile, China's vision of a, quote, fairer world order now. Chinese President Xi Jinping criticizing some countries for building barriers and decoupling, he says, saying too few countries hold too much power. He's calling for reforms in global governance, all this happening at Beijing's version of Davos. He also did not mention the United States at all by name. Joining me right now is retired four-star general and Fox News senior strategic analyst Jack Keane. General, it's always a pleasure to see you. It's funny to hear Xi Jinping call the few two countries with too much power. Your reaction to what you heard from the Chinese dictator?
Well, certainly what's happening here, President Xi doesn't like the international world order that's, pretty much governed the post-World War II era. Like-minded democracies came together to do that, and what they've been trying to do is prevent the World War III that destabilized the world, certainly back in World War II, and create as much economic prosperity as possible. And the truth is, those systems have lifted all boats, and many people have prospered as a result of it. He wants control, and it's kind of rich that he's pushing back on hegemony and seeking justice. Those are his words, not mine. But yet he is the one who is seeking hegemony over the Western Pacific, what he is doing in crushing the Hong Kong democracy. He's got 250 to 300 maritime militia ships in the major fishing areas in the South China Sea. For what purpose? He pushes them in there in huge groups. They're militarized by the Chinese military, and they deny the Philippines, the Vietnamese, and the Malaysians international fishing rights. In other words, strangling their economy. And we also have seen recently, in terms of his hegemony of the area, the incursions he's making into Taiwan. 2020 was the most active year in violating Taiwan's airspace ever. And now he's doubled down on 2020 by his actions that have taken place in the first few months of 21. This is Xi's version of hegemony.
Exactly. But General, these are really dangerous times right now that we're living in, and it feels that this administration is being tested from all ends. You mentioned Xi Jinping and China. They are circling the wagons around Taiwan, making the world understand clearly that they believe Taiwan is a part of China, and they look forward to the reunification. Those goose steps of the police on the ground in Hong Kong, that picture is chilling to see the Chinese police walking the streets in Hong Kong with their goose step, the way they do in China. You've also got Russia circling the wagons around Ukraine, the Iranians digging in, saying they are not going to stop the enrichment of uranium. All of this happening right now. Your thoughts on where we are? I spoke with Devin Nunes about it. Congressman Nunes is the ranking member on the Intel Committee, and here's what he said about current foreign policy.
The Biden administration seems to be going under the policy, instead of, like Ronald Reagan used to say, peace through strength. I think their policy is speak loudly and carry a twig. But I also think the conventional wisdom here, when you look at China, Russia, Iran, what's happening in Afghanistan, is that the conventional wisdom in this town is that, well, the Russians are just bluffing. Oh, the Chinese will really never take over Taiwan. Look, when our adversaries say things like Xi Jinping has said on multiple occasions that Taiwan is part of China, we ought to believe them. And what happened in Alaska, our people being dressed down, is quite simply unbelievable.
General, your thoughts on policy right now with all of these threats?
Well, certainly our adversaries recognize there's a new administration here who has a very ambitious domestic policy, certainly, and we've seen that play out in the last several months. And they're about taking advantage of the United States in any opportunity that they possibly can. And certainly President Xi is doing that. He's clearly testing the Biden administration. I think a lot of the rhetoric and the meetings that the Biden administration has had in dealing with China and accepting President Trump's tough stand on China is in the right direction. But we also know those are words, and actions are going to be the determinant in terms of what the policy execution really is, and that's yet to be seen. But the fact that we met with the Japanese new prime minister and we shared a common view in terms of China's aggression in the region and supporting Taiwan. Those are good things. In terms of the Russia, listen, so our viewers understand what Putin is about is developing his own sphere of influence to regain control over the former Soviet Union states. His problem is many of them are already a part of NATO, but he puts pressure on them in the Baltics. He puts pressure on Poland, all NATO countries. He's putting significant pressure right now on Belarus with troops in there, not a NATO country, and significant pressure, obviously, for a number of years since 2014 on Ukraine. Now he's menacing Ukraine with a troop buildup. He's interested in this control of the Black Sea, and media is not completely focused on that. We frankly don't have a Black Sea strategy in the United States, and we got to put something together here, or that international body of water is going to fall under the orbit of the Russians. And also, he's using the troops at a minimum as a coercive military demonstration to separate Ukraine from the West. And because Ukraine wants to move towards economic integration with the West and also integration with the political and military alliance of NATO. Putin wants no part of Ukraine moving in that direction. A lot of what has taken place here is to shut that down. And let me tell you, Maria, the Europeans are not pushing back. So he's making some progress. And I think in the middle of all of this, President Biden offered him the opportunity to have a summit. Now, we all like to have summits between world leaders, to be sure, but I think Putin sees that as a sign of weakness, to be frank about it. Yes,
of course he does. And we need a summit with the Europeans to ensure that we're all on the same page against these threats. So far, it's questionable where the Europeans are in some regard. General, we'll keep watching all of this. A lot of threats. We certainly are in dangerous waters. General Jack Keane, always a pleasure. Thanks very much, sir.
Yeah, great talking to you, Maria.